Hello everyone, this is your friend Vishal. I understand it's been a very long time since my last tutorial. Sincere apology for that. So I'm bringing you the series of MuleSoft 4 real-time training session videos that I have given to a couple of techies based in US. I trust these sessions will be indeed helpful to all my viewers who wants to grasp in-depth knowledge of MuleSoft 4 and make an impact in their IT career. So today I'm going to present how to build an API specification or design API using RAML, that is a REST API modeling language. Now coming to the agenda of this video, I'll primarily zero in on 3 points. First, to give you an introduction of RAML language, that is REST API modeling language. Then I'll walk you through an American Flight API designed and published by MuleSoft. And finally, we will design our own API specification in RAML for product API. So let's go and start.
So you guys are seeing the screen, right? So this is actually one service which I have created. This is a Spring Boot service. We're going to use this service and we'll be building our API specification in RAML. Once you have any service or any web service or a REST service you have created either in a Java or any other framework other than MuleSoft, I'm saying, then this is your service. But when you develop one service which is very generic in your company, and your team has developed one service and you deployed it on your cloud platform in your company. Now other team has the same kind of requirement, and instead of reinventing the wheel, what that team wants, that they want to use your API, your service, for their purpose, since it's a generic. Now in web services, in a SOAP web service, what do we share when you want to use the service of other teams? We share the WSDL file, right? It's a specification. Certainly it's a specification which tells you what is that service, what that service takes, and what is the response, what is the input you want to submit in order to call their APIs, right? Similar to that, Swagger is a API documentation plugin. It's a plugin. It's for documentation. For your service, it generates the documentations, or it generates some one UI which describes or depicts all your endpoints which is present in your service. So as of now, if you see over here, I have 5 endpoints. One is add product, create, delete, get products by ID. This is one, and the last one is update. So these are 5 endpoints which is linked with some of HTTP methods. Like first two are linked with the post, second third one is a delete, other two are get, and the last one is a put one, right? So these are 5 endpoints which I have created in my service, which is I have exposed through Swagger. So this is the documentation which actually it specifies that how my service looks like. Similar to this, we have RAML in MuleSoft. RAML is just not an API documentation. Since Swagger is just an API documentation plugin, it is not a language which allows you to do some sort of things. Altogether, Swagger has other features that we're not going into, but in MuleSoft, we use RAML in order to create API specifications, right? Let's say we're working in the industry where clients comes and client has a certain requirement. So what the first steps we do in SDLC lifecycle is we design that specifications. We have some raw information what we have collected, we have documented that, but we need to prepare something in order to show and get the sign off before we start with the development. So we need to prepare a specification from that requirement, right? So in MuleSoft, once we have any requirement, we prepare to build something abstraction or interface, and for that purpose we use RAML. It's a REST endpoint API modeling language. It's a language along with its documentation way, and there are plenty of things present in the RAML, and it's backed by MuleSoft. So MuleSoft also provides not only just helps you to design your APIs using RAML, it also has API console and API portal you can create and host in their cloud up environment. So we'll look into that first. So as of now, RAML is a simple, structured, easy way of writing API specification. It's a vendor neutral open specification. It mostly focusing on creating your endpoints, like describing resources, writing the HTTP methods the way we have right now over here, adding the parameters. Parameters means this one. This is a URI parameter I'm passing to one of my endpoint, and media type, that means what type of response we are sending back, right? So maybe it's a JSON form or XML form or some sort of other things, right? And RAML is based on YAML 1.2 version, since the base version, the language we use for like describing all our specification is a YAML language. So I'll go into my Anypoint platform. First of all, if we go to the exchange, I'll go to the exchange first. This is one, and we can go from that or this one. So if I go to the exchange, since I'm in my account, you can see the first one, it's showing the assets which I have created. So this is my product service API which I have created for my Spring Boot service. So this is my RAML specification. So I will not go into that because we are going to develop this product service API again using RAML. As of now, we'll see is there any other connectors or APIs available which is provided by MuleSoft. So if I go and click on the provided by MuleSoft, there are plenty of connectors. So if you search over here American, this is most certainly asked in interview questions and certifications. I'll walk through over this American, and then we'll move further with our own implementation. Now over here, this is a REST API which has been created by MuleSoft. This is most they have used it for training purposes, and the same sort of questions you might get based on these American flights in certifications also, right? So if I open this specification, first page you will land on is the API portal. So this is the API portal. So it's nothing but the documentation similar to this, similar to the Swagger. This is the API documentation page you will land on the moment you click. So this basically depicts that what is your API, what is its function, what are the different versions you have. On the right hand side you can see the latest version, and on the left hand side you have the endpoints which that API supports, right? So if you go to the left hand side, we have one resource. So I want to there would be some of the terminologies. These are new things which I will be using, and I'll explain throughout the course. But when you have a web service URL, or this, when you have this API endpoint, and if this is without any HTTP method, right? As of now, this web service URL, let's say it does not have any HTTP methods linked to it, then that is called a resource in RAML language. So this is a web service URL. This is just a part of the URL. When we click, let's say localhost 8080, and then the base path we got right earlier we see, and then we have a test API. So the test API is nothing but our part of your URL. Since we link that with the HTTP method, that's why we called it as an endpoint. Unless you have it linked with HTTP methods, you cannot call this an endpoint. So it is called as a resource. It's an object. So we have one resource. Now if you see, the second one is not just below that flight, it's under this. So it is a nested resource. So we can call it as a child resource. So one is the flight resource, second is a nested resource which takes ID as a URI parameter. So this is the way we pass URI parameter in REST APIs. So if I go down and if I drill down this one, there is drop down label over here. If I come down, there are two methods which this resource is supporting. The moment I link this HTTP methods to my resource, it becomes endpoint. Okay, so as of now I have two endpoints because it is supporting the two methods. One is get, one is post. Now in HTTP, right, we use get method in order in case if we want to retrieve some data from database or some resources, and we use post in order to insert something or post something to the systems or application. So in flights we have two endpoints, one is a get, one is post. And if I open the ID one, the nested resource, it is supported with three endpoints. One is get, in order to get the flights, any details. This is a flight API basically, so get the flights based on the ID. That's why we have a get. Second, we have a delete, in order to delete that. And the last one we have put, in order to update any flight details. Okay, I will go into the details one by one now. Let's say if I open the get one, so if this is actually, if you can also search in your Anypoint platform, you can check that, because it's the MuleSoft, this API is, visibility of this API is public, so you should be also seeing this one in your account. So we'll go one by one, because this API will also help you to interact with your service and see how does it respond to your request and all. So if I click on get, so the page will open. It says you can try and test this API. So this is flights API of type get. Okay. So if you go to the headers, actually there is a security install. Since it's provided by MuleSoft, there is a security installed, or the security specification has been added to this web service, this RAML specification. So it needs client ID and client secret as a header parameters, going with the request. That's why we have a client ID and a client secret, right? So this is the get one. And if you see onto the right hand side, this is a mocking service. Since this is just a specification, so MuleSoft backed this service using the mock endpoint. So maybe a mock server, you can say. So any data which you have provided while coding the specification, it will respond back. So if you go over here inside a header, you will find client ID and client secret. As of now, you can pass some random value. So let's say test and test, right? It does not need some sort of parameters, right? If I click send, okay, it will return me the mock response. So this is the response. You expect that when you trying to call a get flights API, it would return you the array of flights. This is the first API, right? Now here we have one query parameter which is optional, that is destination. So you can click over here, it will enable optional parameters. This is the destination, it will automatically pop up. So that's why how Mule is smart enough to identify what are the parameters you have in your API. So the specification will allow you to select out of 3 values. Since this destination parameter has used enum, so it has only 3 options. That's why. So if I click or select one of them and hit the request, you would get some sort of same data, but the origin or the destination, what we have typed is the destination, will change to SFO. So it will return the data only with the records which has destination as SFO. So this is the one API. Now if I go to the second API, which is flights with the post, it certainly requires to post some data to the systems. So over here, same headers require client ID and client secret, and there is another part which has been added, is body. This is nothing but the request body. This is the request that we are going to pass. So this would be the type of request it would require. This is structure, or you can say a schema of that request which would require. So if I go to the right hand side again, over here inside the body, you can find this is the response. This is the request which we are going to send to that request. So if I click on, this is automatically provided because we have already this API has already given this sample request in the specification. That's why we got it. We can even change it. I can write my own request of that structure, and I can make a request. But since this is just a mock service and this is just a specification, so it will just simply show simply show the result which it has stored, right? So if I click on the send, it will be returned back. Okay, so it says that empty seats are expected, the number. So the thing is, right? The empty seats is expected. You can find the structure or the schema validations over here. What type of the type of each field over here. The price is in number format. Then we have origin in string, departure date in string, destination string, empty seats in integer format, right? And what else? Total seats are also in integer, but somehow the data what we have passing over here, the request body has all things in string format. That's why it's not it returns you the 400 bad requests, because the type of the data is not matched with the actual structure. So price is in number, so you should remove the double quotes. Again, what else we have? The empty seats in, and last is total seats. Okay, we have for expected number, empty seats, total seats, right? Price. Okay, if I send it back to get the response that flight added, but not really, because this is the mock response which they have using, and they are making a soft insert. They are not actually inserting into the database, because they are not backed by any sort of database. So this is some sort of a soft insert. So there are two endpoints under flights resource. Now if we go to the second one, the ID one, this is the nested resource. So when I click on the get method, you will see what type of URL would popped up. This is under flight, so flight would be added first, and then URI parameter, the nested resource. So this is the compulsory. So URI parameter will always be mandatory parameter you need to pass, or else you cannot make a request. So over here I can pass some random value like 10. So this would be my URL which is prepared by MuleSoft. So if I click send, it will return me the data for specific flight ID. So you would get only single object of flight in JSON format. Similar to that, we have a delete, which is in order to delete the data. We got the similar one. We just have to pass the URI parameter. It's just changed. What is the difference between the get and delete? The structure remains same, but the thing is the HTTP method which is linked to that resource has been changed, because we have a different functionalities. First one is to get one, and the delete is to delete the product ID based on that unique key. So again, if I click on the send button, it would give you some sample response saying flight deleted, but not really. Again, it's a soft delete. And the last one what we have is the put method, which is in order to update some flight details. So here we have to pass two things. One is a URI parameter, which is indicating what is the ID you're going to update and what data you want to update. In that case, we have to pass the structure of your flight. This would be the existing flight details which is already present in the service. Let's say we'll assume that, and we'll be passing that data because the schema of that request is same as what we had in post. So over here I'll say ID as 10. Headers we have already added. In body we got this sample request. Again, we have to change the data type. Sorry. So if I click on send, it would return me that flight updated, but not really. Again, it's a soft update. So this is how they have created the American Flights API. So that's just a specification. So when we use this specification, so you might ask the question, what's the point of specification and how would it be beneficial if once we go for the development? So well, the thing is, the moment we write the specification, that means we're creating a RAML file. So that RAML file will be helpful to create the initial structure of your Anypoint application, the Mule application. So once we have this RAML file created, you can download it, right? So once you have downloaded it, so when you go for creating Anypoint Studio Mule application in a studio, there you can use this RAML file in order to generate the initial structure. So you don't need to go with the start, adding the HTTP listeners, creating the flow, and doing everything right from the scratch. This RAML file will help you to generate the initial structure You just need to write the business logic in it and change whenever you want to make some modifications to your service. That means the moment you create the flow, the initial structure, it would be backed by some mock data which we have provided over here, right? Like this, for update, for gate and something. So your job is just to add a business logic for each endpoint. They have created an interface. It's your job to implement it. In the right hand side over here we have a view code. If I click on this, it will open the code base of that American flight in read-only mode. All right. Okay. So this would be the structure of our RAML file. So this is actually the RAML file. So there are a few things initially at the root level we need to add. First is a version, initial version you can say, of your API. Then the title is absolutely optional. And one more root level parameter that comes over here, that's a base URI. They have not shown because we are in the read-only mode, because that's actually the mock service endpoint. We will be adding that endpoint once we go with the our development. Maybe as of now you can understand. Threads is nothing but the security parameters you want you would need for your service. That I would say that in headers I want to have a client ID and client secret, because in general when you go for the actual enterprise level designing of your API and building, you would not expose that over HTTP, right? So you would need secure communication. So you might have to add some token or something SSO login credentials in order to allow users to access that. So this is about that security types. Then as of now we'll skip the type. I'll explain what is it. Okay, first we will target the resources. So first resource what we have seen over there is the flights. So flight, the resource always start with /. Always remember, so when we go for the development, we'll do that. Resource will always start with the / and then the resource name. Second one we have in the line. Now you can see this is one resource, and all the properties and whatever you want to prepare for that resource comes under that flight resource. So there is an indentation. So in YAML or RAML, this space, right, there's a one vertical line, and the rest body that start with the second vertical line. So this space is called as the indentation. This is nothing but it says, do I need to have a client verification or the security enabled for this resource or not, right? Then this is just a resource. This hasn't become an endpoint. So when it becomes an endpoint, once I link or attach it with the HTTP method, so that HTTP method is here, the first HTTP method of get. So this is the HTTP method. Now again, once we have a method, all the properties for that method or any parameter you want to add comes under that. So one indentation over here, this is very important. If you miss that, RAML will not understand whether it's a part of that, whether it's a nested resource or nested parameter, or it's altogether separate. So this is very important. After that indentation, you got the query parameter, right? Just like we have seen earlier, we have a query parameter. So this is the syntax of query parameters. This is query parameter, and what is the name of that parameter? It's a destination. Now the property of the destination is required, right? The first one is required. Is it mandatory? No, we have said it as a false. Now I want to give some only specific values. That's why I have added enum, right? We got only 3 values. Now inside this gate, we got this query parameter so far. Now once we hit the gate, we are getting some data, that is response. So you have to mention the response. This is just a structure of the response. This is not the actual response you would get all the time. It just says that when you hit the request, you would get this sort of response. So you have to mention the response body. So this is the responses. So your response start with the first keyword responses. Then we have a different HTTP status, right? Response status. One is a 200. We got 400 for bad request, 404 for not available, 500 for internal server errors and not many, right? So as of now we are going with the positive path and we are adding 200. So if I give 200 over here, inside 200 I'll be mentioning my structure or the syntax of my response. So inside 200 there would be body tag. Inside body this would be the media type. This is response type, that is application/json, because my response is in JSON format. Now the type is nothing but the schema or the object structure of my American flight, or just flight. So this is my American flight object, or in class in Java the way you create an object, similarly we have created an American flight object over here. So if I go with this, so the path you can see in examples, it is output. Output is nothing but this is the response you're going back. So we have included the structure of that example. So this is present in Exchange module, and the name of that RAML is American flights example.raml. So one thing over here is that as of now they've used RAML even to write the responses, the mock responses. We can also have a .json file. That is not absolute. That is not compulsory to have everywhere. Even to create the show the examples, even to add examples, we need to have RAML. Not necessary. We can also have a JSON structure over here, but they have used RAML. So this is present in Exchange modules. So if I go over here, you would find, right, there too. This is present in flights example. So over here in 1.0.1, this is RAML file. So this is actually the structure of your array of flights. So this is one flight details, okay, and the second flight details start after this dash, right? So this is my second flight detail. So this is one. I just, instead of keeping that again in my RAML file, I just segregated that and trying to refer that that example file. If I again go back over here, you can see this type has American flight. This is a flight array, and this is my example file. Now how we are getting this flight, American flight? This is an object, so we have to create it, and even to use this American flight we need to refer that. So here inside types I have mentioned I have one type created for my RAML. This is the name of that object is American flight, and this is somewhere placed inside this Exchange modules American flight data type, and this American flight data type dot RAML. So if I go over here, American flight data types, and inside this data type is present. So this is the structure of your object. This is not the fundamental object we're using, just like string and numbers. This is a custom object. So first, this is the standard structure. The first is a type. This is the custom object. Then their properties. We have ID, we have code, we have price, and their respective data types. We have data departure date. Again, within the object we have one more object called play. Inside this I mentioned the properties. Now there is one question tag which is used for ID, which signifies that this ID is not mandatory. If you provide, it would be good. If you don't provide, the service will take care of it, right? So that's why they have used the question tag. Now I will go back over here. Inside examples there is a tag output, and there I have mentioned I'm referring the flight array sample file. So this one thing starting from over here till this is my one endpoint, right? Including that /. Okay, this becomes my one endpoint because for get, since I have it for get. Now if I go down, now you can see there is a one more method which is linked to that resource just below that, right? Now if you see, this is completely aligned with the gate. This is not under the gate, so this is in parallel to gate. So this flight again has one more endpoint over post, HTTP post. Again inside a post, it's just not we are sending back the response, we are also taking the request of some schema or some object, right? Some structure you can say. So even inside a post, the first thing we comes is that what type of request you're taking. So again, for the request you have to mention the body tag, then we come with media type, the response, the request type, is it a JSON form or is it XML form? So I would say it's a JSON form. Then what type of that we got the schema created, right? So the schema of that object is, so type, that means what type of JSON you have. That is JSON I have is an American flight, so this is an object, and I mentioned one example, right? Just providing type will not help you. You just need to provide an example that what sort of data you would might input from your request. So this is my American flight no ID example. So this present inside examples American flight no ID. Now no ID means, since ID is not mandatory, so it will take care of generating that unique key, and rest values you have to provide inside value. This is the value tag. uh, Under that you need to provide all the properties of your object, that means code, departure date, price, origin, destination, inside plane, type, and total seats. So these many things you got to provide. So this is about the input or the request. Now about the response, again the same structure, responses. Now inside post we have 201. Now the 200 and 201 signifies different things. 200 means it just says status is okay. 201 means data is inserted, data created, right? These are the different HTTP statuses available. Inside 201 again we have a body. That structure will remain the same, right? So most of the times when you have the responses, the structure for the response and for the body, most of the time the tags or the keywords we are using would remain the same, just that it would be the change in your schema, the object structure, or the response you're passing. Then we have application JSON inside example. Now there is a one difference. Earlier over here in earlier get response we use examples. Over here we are using example. The thing is, if you are referencing some data, some custom data which you have provided, which you have used to refer, that times we use examples. And if you are trying to create some hard coded response in RAML itself, then we use example. Because now you can see that inside example, this is message. This message is the MuleSoft keyword, and before that I have mentioned my static message. So this is the static response I have created at that same place. So that's why I use example. This is the one use case of it. So this here comes with our post endpoint for our flights. So as of now we covered inside this flights we have get and the post. Now we'll go with the nested resource. Now if you see it carefully, this is not with the first line. The first line start over here, right? This line, this vertical line ends going to the right, and it is the nested resource present to the second line that says that this is the child resource of my flights resource, right? So this comes under my flights resource. So it takes one URI parameter and it is backed with 3 HTTP methods. One is get, one is delete, and put. For the get, again the structure remains the same, so we are not taking any data, we are just passing one parameter. So for URI parameter you don't need to add any extra syntax, just like query parameter. You just need to mention the parameter you're passing over here and the name of that parameter inside a curly bracket. So that says that this is the endpoint which requires the name of that parameter as a input data. So inside a get, I would say simply go with straightforward with the responses. In responses, I'm mentioning for the status HTTP 200. So let's say if I get the status 200, what type of data I want to respond back, because this time I'm going to return only single object of flight, because I'm taking ID, that means this is a unique ID, so I have to respond back with only single object. So inside body there would be application type, that's JSON. The type of American flight. Last time in the flights we take array, American flight array. This time it's just a single object, so American flight. Inside examples output there is a keyword and I have included. So mention, please remember this syntax. Whenever you want to refer any file, extra file which is present or which you have created for examples, for data schema, always remember this is the keyword which is used in RAML in order to include it. This would be a certification questions you might get in your exam. Again, this resource is backed with the delete. Structure remains the same. Response is under it 200. It's most of the time they have used the standard response code 200, and for that they have added their syntax and specification. Inside body JSON format, and the message eventually we have, it's a soft delete message they have added. That's why we get, whenever we hit their specification, we always get the message this flight added, but not really. Last one, we have a put that takes a body because we are updating their flight details, so we would accept one body of type American flight. This is an object, and this flight American flight ID, American flight no ID example is present over here. It does not have any ID because we are updating it, and we are updating, but we are passing ID as URI parameter. This one, this put comes under this URI parameter. So this is the structure which you want to update, but for which ID you want to update, that is getting as a, that we are passing as a URI parameter to my service. Eventually we get the response, and inside 200 there is a body application JSON, that structure, and eventually I have a message that flight added, but not really. That's a soft updation, that's their protocol they're following it. So this is about the American flights API. Okay, so now we will go with the designing part. So inside design center, so if you go to this platform, right, we have a design center. So if I click on the create over here, you can create the specification. So it will give you two options. You want to create a Mule application or API specification. We want API specification. So click on this API specification. Give something name. So I would give something like products service API. Right? Language has been taken by default. This is the latest RAML 1.0. Design center is a location. It would be saved directly and published into the design center. And as of now, the visibility of your service, whichever you're going to create, is private. So you can only see that because we are in the community edition. So if I click on the create specification, all right, okay, now we will add first the root level elements. Title by default it has taken based on your name of your RAML product service API. Okay, it will suggest you that what can be added to your new line. So these are the options you can add to that new line, right? So what options, what I want to add at the root level. So in root level we have these many things, right? Because right now I'm adding root level elements. So in root level I got the title, so this option is not present over here. I want to add a version. So if I click on this version, right, it will automatically add that tag, and here you can mention like 1.0 something, right? So I've added the version. So if I again click enter, again it will show up. I want to add base URI. Base URI is nothing but what would be the URL for your mock service or the service, right? It should be having some host, some port, some base path, and then my endpoint names. It cannot have direct endpoint names, right? So there must be a base URL. So if I click on this base URI, this is present under root section, right? So if I click on the base URI, it will show up over here. Now inside this base URI you can have your custom URL. If you're working, if you're developing, designing your specification for some of your product in your application, you can have your own server URL and port name. But MuleSoft helps you to back your specification with the mock service. So if you go to the right hand side, there is an option called mock service. So if you enable, automatically get the URL to your service. So this is my base URI. This is my mock service URI which has been provided by MuleSoft. Okay, so this is your initial structure which you have created. Alright, so this is, we're done with the root level details. Now we want to add an endpoint. Endpoint is nothing but first we will need to add a resource. So if I go to my Swagger, right, I'll close this, I don't want that, right? The first resource I want to add is get products. So if I click on enter, I'll go a little bit down. Okay, now you have some of the options available, right? So I want to add a resource. So resource always start with, now resource is a custom name, right? So you don't want to add any tag right now because resource is a custom name. So I need to it should always start with the /. So I will keep / and I would add products. This is the custom name I'm giving to my endpoint, to my resource, right? So this is the product. I need to type colon, and if I enter, it would go inside this product, right? This is not parallel to my resource. This is inside my resource. Now inside this, now this is just a resource. I haven't backed it with any HTTP methods. So inside this method section, we have plenty of methods available over here. So which method I want to take? I want to take a get one. So you can type or you can select from there. I will type, right? And you have a support. So if I click on enter, it will add the get method. Inside docs, if you want to add some description for your API, you can use a description name, the description tag. So if I click on the description, it will show up, and I would say this API is to retrieve product details. Okay, this is my description. Now if I enter again, it would come just immediate under below the description, but still under get. Okay, now I want to add. Now I'm not going to take any data from request because it's just a plain get method which would return an array of data. So what comes, the second part is responses. So there is, inside the responses section, we have responses tags. If I click on this, it would add responses and it comes under that. Now within responses, under responses, you need to mention the HTTP status, for which status you want to add a response. So there are plenty of status available over here. Now inside this support, you can see all the HTTP status methods. I want to do for 200, so I click on 200 over here. I'll come under that. Now again, what I want to add, body. So I will click on body, right? Now inside body, there are media type you want to add, like what type of data you will take. Either it's you take application/JSON or XML. Right now we want in JSON, so I click on JSON. So I have to give examples, right? You can take this one as an example, right? This is the array of product details. As of now, it just has only single product wrapped within an array structure. So you can copy it and add it within your structure. We'll have to just adjust this response. Okay, we'll move ahead. Okay. So as of now, we have created one endpoint for our products resource, which is backed with the get. We added the description, and then we have added the response for HTTP status 200 within the body, and this is our response. This is the array of product details. Now on the right hand side, you should be seeing that one endpoint has been created. You can also see it over here, right? Within this, there is a resources, right? this is the summary, and there are the endpoints. It will be mentioned over here. One is products. This is my resource, and within product there is a get endpoint which I have created. So if I open it, so you can try it out over here, because anyways we are back with the mock service URL which is provided by MuleSoft, right? So this is the data you would get written. So if I try it out, if I click on try it, right, this is my API endpoint. If I click on send, it will return me the 200, and this is the data. Parallelly you can develop, and also you can test your specification. We'll see this one, get products and by ID. This is the URI parameter. This is the nested resource. So this is my resource. I should be outside of that get, because this is not every resource. Any method, HTTP methods which resource is backing should come under it. Now within a product ID, right, this is my resource which takes product ID as a URI parameter. So automatically over here you can see on the right hand side it has created one endpoint, one resource, you can say. I haven't added any HTTP methods. Now if I enter, I will add HTTP method. Again I will enter, right? Now what do we need is that we'll add some description to our API. So say this API is to get single product details, get product by ID. Okay, now we are anyways taking the product ID URI parameter from URL, so we don't need to pass anything extra or add any extra syntax to our URI parameter. We can straightforward go with the response. So I would add responses, right? Then again for 200 the response code, I will go under that body colon, then the data type is application JSON/JSON. Now over here I will mention my example, right? Here we need data, the single object. So instead of using the square bracket, I would just simply take that curly bracket object and I'll paste under this. Yeah, right. So this is my second endpoint. So again, if I go to the right hand side, there would be two endpoints, right? One with the product that was earlier created. Under this products, there is a new resource I have added, which is backed by HTTP methods. So if I click on this get method, right, this would show you the documentation or the specification details of that API, and there is a parameter, this product ID, which is required, mandatory. Now if I click on the try it out, it would ask you the value. So if I add that product ID and if I hit on the send button, it would give you the response as the product details. So this is the single product details what we have just added over here. Okay, so this is our second endpoint what we have created. We'll go with the delete one first. This is to delete the product by ID, right? So I will create a separate resource, not the nested resource for it. So now I'm actually parallel to this very first product, because I want to create a main resource, parent resource again, right? Back to the documentations. Okay, now over here we'll add the product resource. So I will say delete product. This is my API name, colon. Under that, the method it's supporting is HTTP delete. So this delete under it. Now here you can see this delete is taking one product ID, one ID, that is product ID, and this product ID is a query parameter. Now you can see over here in the bracket it's mentioned this as a query parameter. So right now we will add syntax for query parameters, how we can take this query parameter. So this is my product ID, right? So over here inside parameters you have two options, one is headers, one is query parameters. I click on query parameters, it will give you that. Now you have to add the name of your query parameter. So my name is product ID colon here, right? Now I will mention the type of my product ID. Type here, we have options of types, so I click on integer. Okay, type is integer. Now I want to make this query parameter as mandatory, so there is a option within parameters required, so I will make this required as true, right? That's it. This is what I wanted to have for my query parameter. Now we will add a response, so I will go back to the parallel to my query parameters. I would add responses, so I would go to the responses tag, I will add it, then we'll have a 200. Every time I'm getting taking 200 as a response code. In case if you want, we can change this. For delete, there must be something in HTTP for the delete API and delete call, so we can use that response code as well, so not necessary to go with the 200 all the time. Okay, now so within 200 there would comes the body part, then comes JSON part because the response goes in JSON format. Now I will use example, right? Now I will not give some JSON structure or JSON mock data. It's just a simple message saying product is deleted. So you can use, there is a message tag which is present, and space you can mention your message, whatever the message you want to give. So I will just simply say product is deleted successfully, right? This is simple. So this is about our delete API. Okay, so if we go to the right hand side again, you will be seeing one new resource backed with delete. So this would be an endpoint, and this is in parallel to product, so this is not a nested resource or endpoint. If I click on delete, right, this is my details of my API. So if I click on the right again, it would ask you product ID because it's a required. We mentioned that required as a true. So I will give you any values right now, not necessary because we don't have any data. It just simply return 200. So if I click on send, it would return me the mock data and the message what we have. So it will be automatically creating the JSON structure. Message is a key and the value is product is deleted successfully. So this is the response what I would be getting. Now we will go ahead. So we'll create this one, the create API. This will insert the product details, right? So let's just add create. That would make sense. Create colon. I entered. Now the method is post, right? Now within post we'll add a description. Okay. This API is to insert product. Now we need to add a request body. So it's not a response body, this is going to be a request body. So the first part comes is body, then application JSON, the type of request body, then comes example, then comes the value, right? Now this is my response, and it's actually a product object, so we can take from this. This is also similar, so I just copy from here and I'll use the same. Okay, this is my request, right? Now comes we I'm now in parallel to body. Now comes the response, so I will add the response tag. Now over here I can use 201 for inserted, because we 200 is okay, so 201 is HTTP saying that product is created, so we can use 201 within that body, and we have application JSON, right? Then I'm using example, and it's a simple message again saying that product inserted successfully or product added successfully. Right. Right, I have created a create resource backed with post, I added a body and the response. Again, if I go to the right hand side, there is a new endpoint created. I click on the post, click on the tryout button. It will automatically take your body, the example what you have given over here, right? And if I click on the send button, it will return me with the 201, because the HTTP code we use 201 that says created, and the message you get the product added successfully. We'll go for the update one. So update is simple, it's just that the method is put instead of post, and we're not taking any parameter over here. Update resource, the method is put, the description, this API description is not mandatory, just FYI, I'm just adding just to have like proper documentation for your specification. Is to update product details. Now body, again we are taking the request because we are updating it, so body part comes, then comes JSON, then comes example and the data. So I can just copy out from here. Okay, I will go down in parallel to body, and now I have to add response. So responses 200, right? And body and application slash JSON, then example. Now here I'll mention it's just a message because we are updating it, so message, then we will give some static message saying that product is updated successfully. That's it. Our update API is done. Once it's done, you must be seeing your API is added over here in the right hand side in your summary. Okay, now the last one we have is add product, which will generate an error. So we'll add this one. This time we are not going to handle 200, we are going to handle 500. Okay, so I will say add product, okay, colon. Process is same till the body, because again we have to pass body, so we'll repeat that. Add product is again backed by post, then I'll add a body tag, then application slash JSON, then example, and over here we'll add this one. So this is the same. Right, then I go to parallel to body, and then we'll add a response. Now this time response will be handling 500 because we are going to get return error of 500 type. So this body application Json example, and simply there is a message saying that error adding product details. Right? Simple. Is saved. Now on the right hand side, there should be created the add product API with the post. And again, if I try it out, the body has come. So if I click on the send, now it should return me the error. So it says 500 internal server error and the message error adding product details. In case now this is running, right? This is in a running state as of now, and you want to publish it. So in the right hand side, you have a publish button. Click on that. Just click on publish to exchange, right? It will prepare for exchange. It will take name, that is a product service API, main file, version current is 1.0.0 and your API version is 1.0. So if you click on publish, so it will be publishing to their exchange. Take some time. Now this is published.